I've never really bought anything at a swap meet before, and I've never done a haul video, so you may be watching internet history in the making here. Welcome back to Cloud 42. I'm James. Earlier this summer, I had a chance to go to the Bar Z Summer Bash, hosted by Stan Zinkowski at his shop down in California. If you've never been, you might want to check it out next year. One of the big draws, aside from the raffle and minor internet celebrity sightings, is the swap meet. I usually fly, so I can't really partake because everything good is heavy. But this year, my friend Uchel from Woods Creek Workshop had his truck there, and he offered to haul my treasures home to Washington and ship them to me. The crates arrived a couple of days ago, and I've been just waiting for you to get here so we can open them together. Everything fit into 3 packages. We've got a typical cardboard box, packed really well, that's silent, and a couple of lovingly handmade crates. I know they're lovingly handmade because Uchel went to the trouble of pointing out the holes of shame where he misdrilled the sides. I love stuff like this. Uchel is just a ham, and he's a good friend to have. The large box here is helpfully marked heavy, in case you didn't notice that when you picked it up. It is indeed heavy. And in case you wondered what it cost to ship stuff like this, I think this was about $200 in shipping. So keep that in mind before you go crazy at a swap meet and then impose on one of your friends to ship it all to you. No unboxing video would be complete without a gratuitous knife opening shot. I know this isn't the Benchmade that I've shown in previous videos. That's my everyday carry. In fact, it's in my pocket as I film this. But if I have a lot of cardboard boxes to open, I try to avoid using it just because the cardboard is so abrasive on the blade and I have to resharpen it, and I'm lazy. So I use these folding knives with the replaceable razor blades in the shop. Now, Uchel promised me some unconventional packing material, and these gym mats are exactly that. Actually, this is really genius. This stuff is really dense foam, should absorb a lot of energy in shipping, and they're really cheap too. So it looks like everything in here is triple wrapped. There's a layer of tape over the top of bubble wrap, and then under the bubble wrap, there's plastic stretch wrap over everything. And I think he hit this stuff with a layer of Bow Shield before shipping it. I know Uchel was really concerned about stuff rusting in transit, but this stuff looks fantastic. Now, the one downside of the stretch wrap is that it is pretty difficult to remove, but it's really protective. Let's see, we got 4 micrometer standards. I was expecting 5. The other one's probably in the box here someplace. And the rest of these should be micrometers. These are all subject to the same treatment, layer of bubble wrap, layer of stretch wrap, and these came through shipping beautifully. There's the other standard. It just fell out down in the box. And the adjustment wrench. As I got into this, I realized that it was much easier to use scissors to cut the tape. I've got a nice pair of shop scissors, and these go through just about everything. This should be the last micrometer in the set. Have I mentioned how much I love those scissors? I'll go ahead and break the box down now. These things tend to pile up around here, and I'd best get it in the recycle bin so I don't trip over it. Why do I need another set of micrometers when I already have a perfectly good set? Well, as with most things, the answer is metric. The micrometers you normally see me use in the shop are these. This is part of a 6-piece set from Sharpe that I bought back in the day for like $99, but they are imperial, and I do a lot of projects with metric dimensions. And doing the conversion back and forth is a really good source of errors. Ask me how I know. I originally was thinking about getting digital micrometers, and I bought this iGaging 1-inch model, but as you can see, the battery is dead, and the battery is always dead. In a hobby shop where I'm not using these every single day, every time I pull it out, it's dead. So I picked these up at the Bash. This is a Brown & Sharpe made in the USA metric micrometer set, 0 to 150 millimeters. And these are in fantastic shape. I really have no idea about the vintage of these. I don't know how old they are. They came in a nice wooden box. Uchel kept that because it was going to be hard to ship. I'll get it from him some other time. These have the ratchet thimble, little locking ring, and they're nice and smooth. One of them is just a little bit sticky, and I'm sure it just needs to be cleaned out and re-lubricated, but these things are pretty nice. Got the 25mm standard here. So let's see how accurate this is. Of course, they can be adjusted, but let's just see how they are right out of the package. And that looks to be pretty much dead on. That looks like 0. This does have the vernier on it for hundredths or thousandths. And yeah, that's pretty much right on 0. I'm happy with that. Let's try a larger one. Now these standards are a little bit different than the ones I've used. Most of the ones that I've seen have spherical ground ends on them, but these are ground flat, which means they have to be lined up perfectly. And that is off a little bit, and it didn't feel to me like it's seated right. Let me try twisting it. See if I can get that to settle in a little bit better. And with a little bit of effort, that ends up landing pretty much right on 0. It's maybe off by 1,000th or 2. So yeah, there's certainly a skill involved in using those. And of course, I'm handling them and changing temperature, and I'm right under an air conditioner. So it's not ideal conditions, but all in all, I am very satisfied with these. They look really good, and these will be a great addition to the shop. Okay, I need to move that standard. Okay, that 25mm standard's bothering me. You're going to move it? There you go. Let's open the small wooden crate next. Now this has got tape on it in addition to the screws. I don't think that's to hold it closed. I think that's just to make it so that the shipping label will stick. Get that slit and take out the screws. Those are substantial screws. Thank goodness for power tools. What do we have inside? Yeah, hi. More of this foam matting material. This stuff is just fantastic for packing heavy stuff. So heavy stuff in a wooden box with several layers of this stuff, that's a good technique. I'm going to have to take that idea and use that in the future. This looks completely intact. I don't see any damage. So you cut some out of the bottom just to help keep it centered. Of course, with Util, you got to go all the way to the bottom of the box. You never know what might be down there, and in this case, it's just a box. That stuff's great. Gonna have to store that idea away for future use. Got the same thing here, some layers of bubble wrap taped. The scissors make short work of that. Try really hard not to damage anything underneath here. Then the same stretch wrap over the rust preventative. And this stuff looks like it just all traveled beautifully. I was a little bit worried about this because it is heavy, and just rattling around in a cardboard box would have been a mess. This is a Hardinge 5C Speed-Collet chuck. You can see it's marked Hardinge Brothers Incorporated, Elmira, New York, USA. And on this side it says number 5CAD3 Speed-Collet chuck. If you've not seen one of these before, it takes a 5C collet and you spin the hand wheel on the outside to draw the collet in and clamp it. So you don't need any tools, you don't need a chuck key. Got a 10mm 5C collet here. This is just a cheap import collet. These are what I've been using on my lathe. And this seems nice and smooth. I don't detect any major mechanical problems. I have a pin here that's about 10mm. Of course, it's from an Imperial set, so it's close. It's a little bit tight here. This collet might be sprung. I'm not sure. Get that in there. Clamp it down. That feels nice and solid. It wasn't squishy at all. It just pulled up nice and tight. Of course, you know, it's a pin in a collet. We'll unlock it here, and just a couple of flicks of the hand wheel releases nice and clean. So far so good. Let's take the collet out and take a little closer look at it. Now the taper surface here does have some wear on it. I can detect a little ridge where where the gap in the collet rides. So this has seen a lot of use. That's something that could be reground, but I'm definitely not going to make any plans for that. We'll see how it actually runs in practice before doing anything like that to it. Now the nose of this thing seems to have taken a beating too. I don't know why anyone would pound on a collet chuck. It's a taper cam lock mount, so it's not like you're going to be tapping it around to true it up. It may have been stored in a drawer with things on top of it. I really don't have any idea. This is a D13 cam lock, and looking down through the cam holes there, you can see the gearing inside. So this does have a planetary in there for driving the collet threads. I do have the studs, and they just thread into the back. There's a couple of different versions of this. There's a metric version, but this is definitely the imperial. Those are 7/16 20, and then the little locking screws to hold those in place. They look fine. I'm not actually planning on using those though, because I do not have a cam lock spindle on my lathe. I have a threaded spindle, and I just pulled out the 3D printed model of the spindle nose, as one does. And I'd like to make some kind of an adapter here. I took a measurement with a scale at the bash before I bought it, and I was pretty sure that the threaded end of the spindle would fit back into this recess, so I could make some kind of an adapter and suck it up pretty tight to the spindle to reduce the stick out. And it looks like that plan is going to work. The studs would be in the way, and if I make a real cam lock adapter, it'll have to be pretty thick, but I should be able to make an adapter plate that'll pull it in much closer, and that sure looks like it would work. Now this thing's not in great shape. It's seen a lot of use, and it is really dirty. The rubber on the hand wheels seems to be intact. We'll just have to see how this thing cleans up, and we'll do that in a future video. And last up, we have the large heavy crate. Let's get this thing open and see what's so heavy. Looks like I'm going to have a lifetime supply of screws. I'll keep those in case I need to ship anything to Uchel. And speaking of Uchel, we've got a note. Sorry it took so long. Oh man, don't worry about it. You were doing me a huge favor. I know you've got a lot going on. I'm just glad you were able to help me transport all the stuff you talked me into buying. Got a bolt and a washer. And it may seem kind of frivolous to package all these small things this way, but all of the pieces that are in the crate help to cushion each other. So this is really the way to do it. This is a master class in how to package and ship stuff. See, those are the cams for the 5C collet chuck. You should not be seeing those. I'm giving away my time travel secrets. Got a brown and Sharpe surface gauge here. This is the one with the flexure and the adjustment knobs. You can use this also as a squareness comparator. It's just a beautiful little piece. I could not pass that up. This is a post for a comparator stand. Uchel let me know before he shipped it. There's a little ding in the base. That's no problem. I will stone that out. And here is the flexure arm for the comparator stand. And that means that down here in the bottom must be the stone. And that's what's making the box so heavy. Wow. This stuff is really packed in here. Good job. And there you can read the name Standridge Granite on the side. This is a beautiful piece. This is actually from the estate of Rick Hieronymi. If you've been around the bash in previous years, you knew Rick. His family had a bunch of his tools at the swap meet this year, and I'm just honored to be able to bring home a tool like this and have it in my own shop. Looks like it was last calibrated in 2016 to an overall accuracy of 50 millionths, repeat reading of 30 millionths. This is going to be perfect. This is going to be, overkill for a hobby shop like mine. Looks like this stone was stored with a rubber sheet on top of it to protect it, and the surface looks great. I don't see any kind of damage at all. Let's go ahead and assemble it. I did stone the bottom of the upright. There was a little ding, and the precision ground flat stone just took that right off. Stand this up. Put in the screw and washer. And then just thread on the rod. This doesn't have to be super tight because the parts are nice and flat and square. Just enough to make sure it doesn't come loose when I'm using it. The indicator holder is 2 cast pieces with a double flexure connecting them. That's a nice clean fit on the upright, and that locks down nice and solid. I think I would like a bigger knob on this, and I might do something about that someday, but even as it is, this works really well. Then there's a knob to adjust the flexure. This threads through the top casting and bears on the bottom casting and just bends those flexures back and forth for fine adjustment. I'll eventually be using this with a Gage amplifier or with a MAR millimeter indicator, but that MAR has an 8mm stem, so I'll just grab one here with a 3/8 stem so I can test this out today. This is a 1/10 indicator. That clamps in securely. It'll lower this down, and then I will grab a gauge block just to do some initial testing. This is a grade 2 set I picked up on eBay recently. Seems to be in pretty decent shape, though, time will tell how great it really is. Get this lowered down and zeroed. And that's pretty nice action on that flexure. This is only a 1/4 20 screw, but still really fine adjustments are possible. Looks like I might have a speck of dust underneath that block. It's not sitting perfectly level. Got that pretty much zeroed. And if I rotate that around, it's coming back pretty much to zero. The adjustment feels good. I think this thing is going to work. Again, it's a beautiful piece, and I'm just honored to have it in my shop. We got the surface gauge over here on the surface plate, so we can give it a test run. This was made by Brown & Sharpe. It's a model 599585, and it's marked North Kingstown, Rhode Island, USA. There's also a sticker that looks like it had a patent number, but that's worn out. The feet on this look to be ground and lapped, and they look like they're in good condition. And it just glides beautifully on the surface plate. Completely different experience from the import surface gauges I've used. I'll set the arm up facing towards the knob. You can set it either direction, but I'm going to face it towards the knob because I'm going to test this as a squareness comparator, and the bumper's on the knob end. Let me grab an indicator. I've got an interrapid 1/10 indicator that should fit nicely into the holder here. And we'll get that set up with the same 1-inch gauge block. Now the knob just bends the flexure on the back and makes this really easy to adjust. And I'm seeing no rocking on the plate. This seems nice and solid. And it looks like whatever was underneath the block, I got that cleared out because this is staying nice and level. It's really easy to zero. And that reading repeats beautifully. This really does sit solid on the plate. I expected to see something, but I'm not detecting anything on the needle of this 1/10 indicator, so I think we're in good shape. Yeah, whatever I had under the block on that other plate, it's not present here. So sliding the block around, it's reading nice and parallel. And then I should be able to do the same thing by sliding the surface gauge around, and sure enough, that's reading nice and parallel and flat. This is good. This is so much better than the little import gauges that I've used. Let me raise this up and set it up for a squareness comparison. You can see the knob also tilts the column forward and back, and there's a little bumper here on the front. Now this one is a flat bumper. It's not curved, but it should serve the same purpose. I have a cheap import cylinder square here. Put that on the plate and measure it. I've never measured this thing. I don't have any idea if it's a cylinder or if it's a square. But this should tell us pretty quick. We'll get this zeroed up. So the max reading on this side is about 0, maybe just a touch high. It's pretty close. And go around to the other side and we should read the same thing.
And that's reading a couple tenths high, maybe even 2.5. So yeah, it's definitely leaning in that direction. Check it on this side. I would expect to see it somewhere in the middle. And there it is, about a tenth high. Yeah. Do we repeat when we come back to the same location? Yeah, pretty much. So it's close, but we know it's not square. I wonder if it's a cylinder. You know, we do have a comparator stand. We could check it. I've got this set for the right diameter, and I'll just wipe any dust off of the plate so we can get good readings. And you can see on this end, I've got that set so the max reading is right about at 0. We'll rotate this around and take a few readings in different places. That might be a tiny bit high, but it's very, very close. We could be reading surface imperfection. We could be reading some lumpiness in it. There are ways that you can read the same diameter at every position, even though it's not round, but this looks pretty okay, at least with this measurement. So let's try it in the center. And the diameter there is a little bit higher. That's about a tenth, maybe a tenth and a half larger in the center of the cylinder. So I guess technically it's not a cylinder, but we're only talking about a tenth. And for a sub $200 import cylinder square, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's actually pretty decent. It's better than I expected. Let's try it again down here at the bottom. And that's a little bit smaller again. Oh, there it's reading about a tenth high. It's a little bit inconsistent, so it might be a little bit lumpy, but you know, we're within a tenth. There's back closer to 0 again. There's about a tenth high. Let's go back up to the top and make sure we can repeat our reading, because if we can't, this isn't worth much. And yeah, we're right about 0. Right in that spot is maybe half a tenth low. Yeah, that's right on 0. So it does repeat, so I do trust the readings we're getting. So it's close. It's not a cylinder, but it's close. Boy, if I subject everything in my shop to this level of scrutiny, it's going to drive me crazy. Oh well, it'll be a fun ride.
Yeah, this is my first swap meet haul, and I'm afraid I might have caught the bug. Just need to decide if it's worth the 4 days to drive my truck there and back next year. Thank you for watching.